Hello everyone, welcome back to News with Innocent, your trusted source for South African breaking news. Today's report focuses on an important national issue that affects millions of South Africans, foreign nationals, businesses, and anyone interested in the countries. The South African government has provided an update on immigration. According to the Department of Home Affairs, the plan aims to strengthen border security, improve immigration law enforcement, reduce visa processing delays, introduce more digital services, attract skilled workers and investors, combat identity. Let's hear from officials and please drop your opinion.
The total number of 68,138 foreign nationals who have been processed for repatriation. Is this the sum total, or is this work in progress, you believe?
Good afternoon, Oli. Good afternoon to your viewers. That figure particularly is for the TRPC, or the work that we have done in relation to the migration work or the repatriation work that we have done between when we started with the Sherwood team until this week. So it's particularly only that you'd know that we have issued a number based on BMA figures that would be around 72,000. That would include other ports of entry such as OR Tambo as well.
There were questions during that media briefing where colleagues from the media were suggesting that some of the people who potentially could be arrested for being in the country illegally are now evading the major city centers and opting for either rural parts or those peri-urban areas where it is slightly difficult to identify them. How are you dealing with this on the ground? I know you said you're dealing with municipalities, but I want you to narrow it down. Who exactly is the IMC working with in order to make sure that the country indeed has people who are here and who can be identified through the papers?
But the issue of, I think they called it secondary migration, we'll have to do an analysis in proper to see if it's correct. We are experiencing secondary migration. But the issue mainly is that across the country, law enforcement agencies are expected to be able to deal with issues of illegal immigration, like we have reported in terms of Operation Shanyela that is taking place every time across the country. So if we look at that, we'll be able to see that weekly police do operations, arrest, and therefore Home Affairs then confirms if these people are illegal immigrants in the country. And without that, then they are able to deal with that across. So there was particularly mention about Maluti Apofo, which came across as a specific area that we have requested police to zoom into to see if indeed is correct, where one of the questions came to say you've got Pakistanis, Ethiopians, and others who are moving into that area, and therefore, because they believe it is quiet. But secondly, we are working with traditional leaders, especially in rural areas, where they are able to give us data. Many of them actually have done an analysis of the people within their communities. They have requested indunas to confirm if somebody that is not known arrives into the community. This both to deal with those who come into communities, and then they do raids into communities, but also those who are running away from other areas into their communities. So we've been interacting with many of the traditional leaders in that regard and receiving feedback. But what we'll do specifically for this one, we'll zoom into it, because other times we've been given the leads by communities to say there's a particular activity that is happening in this area, therefore respond to it. That's what has happened.
Another interesting figure is the one of 354 arrests and the prosecutions linked mainly to migration law violations. Is that all that they are charged with? Are there no serious crimes that some of the people are linked to?
No, I think let's separate that. That question particularly was relating to your illegal mining. So the case where Operation Prosper has arrested, I think it's about 254, if I'm not mistaken, of individuals that are linked to the Zamazamas. And the individual was asking that they have observed when these individuals arrived at the Western Area Magistrate Court, they were literally charged not with illegal mining activity, but with violating immigration laws because they were not in the country correctly. And what we explained is that currently we are reviewing legislation. The JCPS cluster, together with NetJoins, had tasked the Department of Justice to work on a review of a legislation around that area, which we will be announcing in the coming few weeks. But on the issue of migration-related arrests, the one that you are talking about, around 354, those are particularly those who are inciting violence, those who have gone into communities, and some of them are related to the Mozambican nationals who've been killed, but also various activities. We've got about 3 that incited the marches that led to destructions and all that. So those will be the categories of the people who've committed, and that 354 is South African nationals mainly that have committed violations that are actually within the violation of immigration, either impersonating of law enforcement agencies by seeking documentation and all that. So it will be in that category.
Whilst we talk about Zamazamas that you have invoked in this answer, Minister, there are reports suggesting that the army is now preparing to go underground in search of the very Zamazamas that you speak of. You'll remember this was 2 weeks ago. 2 soldiers, they fell into a trap of sorts. It's called a vertical shaft, and they drowned in mud whilst they were in hot pursuit of the Zamazamas. Can you confirm that indeed there are efforts now to prepare the army to go deep underground in order to, if you like, get the Zamazamas out?
Odi, let me also pass my condolences and that of the MC to the 2 soldiers' family, friends, and colleagues after their passing in doing their work in terms of Operation Prosper. The details you are looking for, Oli, are operational matters, which the generals will be able to give you in detail what they are doing. As a minister, though, even in my capacity as JCPS, we don't get involved in operational matters. So the details you are looking for are really operational in nature.
Okay, all right. No, I'm not going to press further on that, Minister. I'll respect that. But linked to the conversation of illegal migration, and you spoke of South Africans who are taking matters into their own hands, I link back now to the question of South Africa, whilst it deals with this matter, but making sure that it observes human rights and dignity. In the past few weeks, you were quoted in the Sunday Times as suggesting that this matter, there could be a third hand or a third force that is perpetuating this situation in the country because there is a case that South Africa is fighting at the International Court of Justice. And you were basically suggesting that there may be a government or government that want to make South Africa look bad purposefully. Can you expand on that for us?
Look, Lodi, what we do is analyze what are the threats to the state, what are the issues that we are dealing with, and what could be the matter. I think one of the issues, if you look, it's just that they didn't publish the entirety of the conversation. The conversation is about when you are a country and you have social ills that you are dealing with, you become vulnerable to any form of infiltration, any form of attack, especially when you look at global politics. So when you have even battles that you have taken as a country, you become vulnerable to retaliation. And that's why it's important for South African government to deal with the issues of what could be the source of mobilization. When somebody wants to do a regime change, they don't do a press briefing and announce that we're going to do a regime change in this area. Majority of the trend, if you look at global activities, and even previously where there's been regime change, they find a source of discomfort or a source of concern in the communities and utilize that as a point of mobilization and also as a point of actual coup d'etat in some of the areas or regime change in some of the areas. So we are saying as government, or we are saying as the IMC as well, is that we need to analyze all fronts in order to deal with this. What makes us vulnerable? Are we vulnerable to global attacks? And what would make us vulnerable to global attacks? And if there's that case, what is it that we need to do to deal with this? And my issue is, let's deal with the issues of social ills in the communities, deal with the issue of crime, deal with the issue of unemployment, ensure that South Africa remains stable, because if people feel part of this country, feel part of the economic activities, and they can be able to defend the state and defend their sovereignty, no one will walk in and try and influence them otherwise. Migration has become a source of mobilization against the state, and that's why it's something that we must be worried about. It's something that we must handle, and it's something that we must respond to our citizens, so that if anyone wants to come in and influence them or actually want to mobilize them, it should not succeed.
Let me be direct, Minister. I'm desperate to move to another topic before we run out of time. Are you accusing Israel of possibly fanning the flames of illegal migration protests in South Africa?
I have not accused them of anything. I'm saying we have global activities that will make us vulnerable. And if they are found to be active, they will be said publicly. Currently, I don't think I can say that, but I'm saying we are vulnerable. Yes, the ICJ case makes us vulnerable because there's been issues of us being asked to drop the case. We haven't. So it makes us vulnerable not only to Israel, but even those who feel that we shouldn't be, who do not want to see such cases at the ICJ, because it sets trends, it sets precedent, it's one of its kind. So anyone who feels that this setting of this precedent actually can lead to myself as a leader in that particular area or our country being attacked would be able to take through. So it's an issue that we must continue to mobilize, to normalize, to watch activities. If we do pick up activities of any other country, whether it's Israel or anyone, we'll definitely deal with it. But currently we are saying we are dealing with migration, and we shouldn't be distracted from dealing with the migration. Responding to South African citizens, any other matter is going to be secondary, and we are saying we are dealing with it so that anyone who wants to mobilize South Africans against its government should not be successful.
I appreciate that, Minister. Let's move on then very quickly to the matter of IDAC. And I'm going to, again, ask you a direct question here. You've watched the testimony of its head. Are you concerned that that institution or that agency has lost credibility as a crime?
Yeah, we needed to focus on migration for now, and I'll do a media briefing that relates to the portfolio. What we have said, myself with the NDPP, we've issued a statement. We're not going to run commentary to Madlanga Commission. Let's allow the head to conclude his testimony clearly. Let's respect the parameters of the work of the commission so that we are not disruptive and we don't run commentary. Once everything is done, I will make my views known and we will address the nation in relations to that.
All right. In the spirit of respecting current processes, I know that there is one particular meeting that was held between yourself and the NDPP, and my assumption is that Ms. Johnson was part of that meeting. A particular recommendation has clearly been made. Are you at liberty to share with us what it is that you've recommended to the President?
Oli, the statement was issued between myself and NDPP. We are looking at various areas of addressing, as we said in the statement, addressing the credibility and also ensuring that the state can respond. So we're not going to deal with that in the public domain currently. Allow us space so that we can comprehensively respond to all issues that South Africans are concerned about. And I can assure you that we will definitely do that. But let's allow all those that needs to appear before Madlanga to appear without having their minister making comments, running comments, and they feeling that they needed to respond to the voice of the minister instead of responding to the commission's issues.
All right. It's fine. Let me move completely away from Johnson then and ask you one final question, and it relates to Advocate Andrew Chauke. He's been cleared in this inquiry that was testing his fitness for office. Do you blame anyone for what has happened here, or you simply saying that that matter is now shut? We are in the process of making sure that Advocate Chauke is back on the job.
No, the president has issued a statement clearly in that regard. The inquiry did its work. We supported that work to ensure that they do their work without being hampered by us. They submitted their report. I was part of that meeting of handover. The report was submitted to the president. The president issued a corresponding communication to say he has been cleared of all the wrongdoing or accusation. Advocate Chauke is back at work. Last week, Friday, the NDPP actually was in Johannesburg South offices, reintegrating him back to the office, and also on our behalf, thanking Advocate Sakata, who has been acting from Northern Cape, is the Northern Cape DPP, who held the fort while Advocate Chauke was home, while he was on suspension, while he was dealing with the inquiry. So I want to thank all the staff for cooperation, starting with Advocate Chauke, thanking him for the cooperation, as the president has said, but also ensuring that he subjects himself to the process, but equally appreciating the team at the Johannesburg South for giving Advocate Sakata the support that he needed during his acting, but also the reintegration, and appreciate the work that is being done by NDPP Mutibi of ensuring that there is smooth transition between the two and ensuring that the office functions effectively.
What then do you do, Minister, with the recommendation, at least it comes across as a recommendation, that there may be a case to answer for General Johan Boysen and the so-called Cato Manor death squad? That is a very clear and almost a direct recommendation. Where do we go from there?
I'm not so sure where you have seen it. I've not seen the report, Toli.
No,
Maybe
it is through the letter of the president.
In a better position.
It's through the letter of the president.
Yeah, the letter doesn't instruct me to do anything, Toli. The letter, in my capacity, if you know my responsibility as Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, oversight of NPA, I do not have prosecutorial responsibility, neither am I a police officer. So the instructions will go to the people who are supposed to do something. If the report says that, let's say, for example, the report says that SAPS needs to do, the president will refer the matter to SAPS for SAPS to do. If the matter is recommended that NPA needs to do something, the president will directly say to the NDPP if it's prosecutorial powers for the NDPP to do anything. As I sit here, there are no direct instructions from that process to the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development.
I thank you very much, Minister.
Government has also acknowledged ongoing challenges, including backlogs in visa processing, capacity constraints, document fraud, illegal border crossings, modernizing legacy systems, balancing security with efficient public services. Experts say addressing these issues will require sustained investment and cooperation across multiple government agencies. The next phase of the Migration Reform Plan is expected to include continued digital transformation, additional border technology, stronger cooperation with neighboring countries, legislative reforms where required, further improvements in immigration administration. Government says implementation will continue over time, with updates expected as projects. South Africa's migration reform plan represents one of the country's biggest efforts to modernize immigration and border management. While progress has been reported, many South Africans will be watching closely to see how these reforms are implemented and whether they deliver meaningful improvements. As always, News with Innocent will continue bringing you factual updates as official information becomes available. What are your thoughts on the government's migration reforms? Share your respectful opinion in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more South